I'm Logan at Me and McGee Market and wanted to dive into ground beef. That is one thing that is a big thing for farmers, obviously beef farmers, and there is a major comparison. So I ran to Walmart, I picked up two different varieties that were there. One that was just kind of your run-of-the-mill, one that I would have gotten if I was in a pinch and needed to get, and then I'm gonna compare a locally raised one and see all the differences. The first ground that I picked up was just your run-of-the-mill regular old 7327. It was one of the least expensive that wasn't in that roll, the big tube. And the first thing that I saw was there's definitely a color difference. It was a lighter color than the rest of them. And so as I was trying to prepare for the presentation and look into the differences, I found out that there was really no way to find out where it came from. And the other thing that kind of stood out was that it could have been a whole lot of different animals combined in one. So that was interesting. The next was what I would have got to feed our family, and that is going to be a 10 or 90-10 lean to fat blend, and it's grass-fed, grass-finished. So based off of the labels is what I was going for, and it's 100% grass-fed, grass-finished, and no hormones, antibiotics. What I found about that as I was researching is there's no real good way of identifying where this came from. So it could have been raised in another country, brought in, and then that meat been inspected, so USDA inspected, which doesn't mean it came from the United States. That was interesting. Not that I have anything against imported meat. It's just I'd like to know, where it came from. And so the last thing is going to be Sowing beef. So this is actually from my hometown. The farm is right under 80 miles from where we are located at the market here. The individual cow, so one, was taken to Pottsville and processed, which is 10 miles from there, and then brought here. So within 80 miles, everything was done. So we don't know where this came from. We don't know how many cattle are in there. It was also going to be what's called a CAFO, so a confined feeding operation, a feedlot. And so crammed together, fed grain, that's what that is. This one is grass-fed, grass-finished, but we don't know where it even came from, and this we know. So the price point, least expensive to most expensive, this is right there in the middle. So let's open it up and see what it looks like outside of the package. So it actually doesn't have a real distinct smell, so that's good. Some of it that we have gotten out has quite the smell. So that gives us a visual that's pretty light. Be able to look at that and compare. Again, there's going to be different taste preferences. I have been able to travel around and see all kinds of different farms across the country and across the state, and I personally want to support the farms that have their animals out on pasture. So we've got the regular ground, the grass-fed, and then the local. And we thawed this out, so we do keep the local in the freezer, and we thaw it out as it's needed. All right, so there is more of a color distinction in that than I thought there was going to be. So we can tell those apart pretty easily. As far as smell, believe it or not, the local has the strongest smell. It wasn't unpleasant. It's not nasty in any way. It's rich. So that's interesting. Kind of no smell with that one. So that gives us a good visual. Grass-fed, local, and custom. Pretty significant difference in the colors. Let's cook it up and see what the taste difference is and how it cooks down. All right, so the first one, we'll just make a regular burger patty. We're not gonna season it, that way we can really let the meat do the talking. So one little patty. So we didn't want to use tallow or seasonings or anything, just so we can get that true taste of the meat. I think that's the only way to really be able to compare it. It is producing quite a bit of fat right off, but we knew that it was a higher fat content with that blend being the 27% fat. All right, gonna flip the first one. Very fatty, a lot of oil popping off. All right, so this definitely shrunk up quite a bit. That was, so it definitely shrunk up quite a bit. It's interesting. So we didn't cook it again. Again, this is not a how to cook a burger tutorial. We're just trying to get it cooked off so we can taste the differences in the meat. All right, so this is gonna be the big box store, grass-fed, grass-finished. Got it going in. Again, no seasoning, no tallow, nothing. See how it cooks off. The first thing that I'm noticing on this is what's coming off of it looks a little more watery than the oily from the conventional raised one. So this again is the grass-fed, grass-finished. All right, flip the, this is gonna be the store-bought grass-fed. Not much fat at all. It is a 90-10 blend, so not expected, but it hasn't shrunk up a whole lot. Grocery store, grass-fed, ground-fed, it's holding its shape. It's not shrinking up nearly as much. I do think it's taken a little bit longer to cook. Trying to keep everything as same as possible, just to kind of make sure that we get an objective take on taste. Or go ahead and pull this one off. May not be completely done, but it's gonna be close. Cooked just a little bit longer than the just conventional one. So here is our local grass-fed, grass-finished. And with the local, noticing not much of anything is coming out. It's very, not watery, not fatty, not oily. So that's an interesting comparison. All right, so this is the local burger, and it is also holding up its shape really well. I did try to make them all right around a quarter pound. Held up, not a little more fat actually than the other one. Let's cut inside and see what it looks like. All right, for the first conventional one, the thing I notice is it really reminds me more of like a sausage patty. It almost looks like pork, so that's interesting. The next one's gonna be the grass-fed from the big box store, and it's held up a lot different than that one. Again, it is a much lower fat content, but pretty solid structure. And then we have the local grass-fed, grass-finished, and that has more of a caramelized look to it. And again, the structure is much different than the first one. We're gonna cut into them and see if we can see any difference on that. So try to do right down the middle and see what it looks like. I don't know if there'll be a big difference, but that's what it looks like. So the point of this is not necessarily to tell you what to pick. It's just, hey, these are the differences in the different products. That one we did cook the longest out of the three just to get done. It's still just a little bit pink in there, but there we go. That's the three different meats. All right, let's go find out what the differences in the taste are.
And they were cooked the same?
Close as possible.
The first one didn't have any flavor.
It was still meaty, but it looked a lot smaller than the other patties after they were cooked too.
Had more of like an oaty flavor to it.
I wouldn't say gristly, but the texture's different. So it's like, I don't like that at all.
The one in the middle it's okay. It still has a lot more flavor than the first one.
This one had more flavor, and then this one has even more flavor. And without them being salted or seasoned or whatever, I'm amazed how good that this one is.
The other difference that I noticed is texture-wise, this one over here was a little bit more dry than this one over here.
You can tell a huge difference once you come over to the third.
So same weight and everything that was done?
It just has a different texture to it. It's really good.
All right, so that is, you know what it is. Not telling you what you should do or what you need to get, but there are definitely differences, and I hope that we have relayed that to you so you can figure out what you really want to get.